Welcome to Achy Breaky Park, the podcast about theme parks hosted by two guys who live nowhere near their favorite theme parks. I'm Eric.
And I'm Noah. So today we're going to be talking about something that's in a theme park close to home, Canada's Wonderland to be exact, my home park and formerly Eric's home park. And we're going to be talking specifically about a ride in the kiddie area called Ghoster Coaster. And this is it's a classic Canada's Wonderland ride. Any kid who's grew up in Toronto has probably gone on this at some point in their life. It was probably their first roller coaster, and one that I think me and Eric both hold fondly in our hearts.
I was thinking about that myself. I don't remember if this was my first roller coaster, but definitely an early ride for me.
I don't remember if it was. In my head, I remember Silver Streak, another Wonderland ride that's in the kiddie area, being my first roller coaster. But I don't know. I don't remember exactly if it was this one or that one, because I don't know if I would have quantified this as a roller coaster. You know what I mean? It is, but in my child brain, it might have been too small to be a roller coaster.
Really? Because I was going to say Taxi Jam, which is also in that same area. It's like super tiny. So Ghoster Coaster was definitely substantial enough for me as a kid.
I don't think my parents took me to Wonderland like when I was really little. Like I had to be at the age where I would start asking them to take me, because I know when my dad would take me, he hated going because he did not like roller coasters. Yeah, I remember he would always ask if they have like a grounds pass just so like you could go in but not ride any of the rides, because like he would just like, and that's when I got older, like when I didn't have to go on, like when I needed a parent to take me but I needed an adult to go on the ride with me, he would just want to like wait off the ride because he just hated all that stuff.
I remember you've told me about this a little bit before, that he would always make you go to sit through all the shows, the stage shows at Wonderland.
Yeah, because he would like that stuff, that he would be going for the shows. And I think once the shows kind of went more downhill, which we'll probably get into later, it became even worse for him to go there.
I can't imagine going to a place like Wonderland for the shows. That's not their strong point.
Yeah. I remember the first time he took me, like the first time I went on like Silver Streak, I remember he asked me, like, I think he was joking because he thought I would say no, because we were in the kiddie area, and Silver Streak is like, it looks like a pretty, like when you're a kid, it looks like a pretty substantial ride. You know what I mean? It's like a mini vortex.
Yeah, it's a suspended coaster. It's pretty big. Like I remember as a kid getting a lot of thrills out of it.
Yeah. And he asked me as a joke, like, do you want to go on that one? And I said, yeah. And then he was like, oh no, now I have to go on this ride. That, I think I always quantified that as my first roller coaster, even though it probably was Ghoster Coaster.
Yeah. So anyway, to get back to Ghoster Coaster, this was, like you said, it was in the kiddie area, which is currently themed to the Peanuts gang, Snoopy, Charlie Brown, and friends. But at one point in our childhood, back when it was Paramount Canada's Wonderland, this was the Hanna-Barbera area. And suiting that, it was Scooby-Doo's Gasping Ghoster Coaster.
This decade is the decade. I understand Cedar Fair made that park a lot better. Like objectively, they made that park better. They put a lot more money into it. They put a lot more roller coasters into it. But the decades when Paramount was running that park were amazing, because you had like, not to talk shit on like the Peanuts, but you had like strong IPs here. You had like SpongeBob, you had all the Nickelodeon characters, you had all the Hanna-Barbera characters. Like this was like a good time as a kid.
That was a weird rift, I remember. Like it's kind of been memory hold for me, the period of time where when I was really young, it was all Hanna-Barbera in that kids area. And then the Nickelodeon, the Nicktoons started coming in like slowly but surely, like mid 2000s, which I was a huge Nickelodeon kid around that time. So this was fantastic for me.
As a kid, I was obsessed with SpongeBob. Like how I'm obsessed with Disney now, I was obsessed with SpongeBob for like a brief period of time. And when you could go there and you could meet SpongeBob and Patrick, that was like a great time. And they even had, I don't remember if there was SpongeBob rides, but I remember there was like a Jimmy Neutron ride, which was mainly just like a spinner.
They were all like kiddie flat rides, but they were great nonetheless.
Yeah, they were like something you would see at Universal Studios, like their flat rides. Like I would say they're on par with like a lot of like the kiddie Universal flat rides.
They were nicely themed, like the ride vehicles and everything. I also remember there was that SpongeBob 3D movie. I think that's
That's what I was thinking of. That SpongeBob 3D movie, amazing. And it's the same one that plays in like every single like amusement park like around the world. It was in Vegas, but the chairs didn't move in Vegas.
Oh, really? Because this was full theater effects. Like I remember there were water sprays, there were like everything you would expect from like Universal or Disney
Yeah,
almost.
so it was at Circus in their like indoor amusement park, and they had all the effects there, but it was just like the seats didn't move. So it was just like a 4D, it was like a 3D movie that you would see at like Disney.
So circling back to Ghoster Coaster, the theming in here at the time that it was Scooby Doo was fantastic. The ride itself, it's always been this like simple wooden roller coaster, kind of what you would see at any theme park, just kind of scaled down for kids. But the intro to it with the graveyard and the haunted house was amazing.
I will say it's fantastic for what I would quantify as a regional amusement park.
Of course, of course. I feel like everything I just said needs an asterisk next to it. It was great theming for what it was, but as a kid, I loved it.
Oh no, for sure. Like the fact that it was Scooby Doo, even though like the actual ride really had no Scooby Doo content on it, the queue was stellar as a kid.
There was this giant haunted house that was just past like the entrance to the queue. I think most of the queuing area was inside that haunted house. And I'm looking at some old pictures of it. I sent them to you as well. And it just like kind of towers over the whole thing.
Was there a bigger haunted house there? Because I'm just thinking of currently right now, there's just one like it's like when you're inside of it, it's like the size of a shed, and there's one switchback inside of it.
Was it really? Was it always like that?
I think because all I remember there being in here is one cardboard flat against a wall of like Scooby and Shaggy pointing you in the direction of where you're supposed to go. Like that's all I remember from this. Even as a kid, I remember it being like a shack.
I wish I had saved a photo. There was a photo that I saw online that was inside the haunted house and it showed like a staircase that like went up to another floor. You couldn't actually go up the staircase. This was like outside of the queue area. It was more like a decoration thing. But even just seeing that, like I was impressed. Maybe I'm just giving it way too much credit for being a regional park, like you said, but
But like, are these really regional parks if they're owned by Paramount? Can you still quantify it as a regional park even though it's owned by like this massive corporation?
well, I dove a little bit into the history of the parks just because it's so interconnected with this ride.
This was an opening day attraction.
You're right. May 23rd, 1981 is the date that I have down here. One of the first four roller coasters to open. Can you name the other ones?
Dragonfire, Wild Beast, and Mindbuster.
Yeah, those are the first four. So three wooden coasters and Dragonfire. Of course, it's grown a lot since then. But what I found really notable about this is that all of these rides were built in house by the Taft Broadcasting Company, which was the owners of the park at the time, which was weird to me because this was like a radio and television company that was building its own roller coasters.
Is it? That's why that's kind of wacky to me. So
Yeah, I found a few conflicting sources.
yeah, because
Uh,
I saw something else. I saw it was built by. Oh no, you're right. Taft Broadcasting.
did you see the Philadelphia toboggan coasters?
That's what I saw. That's what I was reading before that.
Yeah, there's a little bit of muddy history here on who built the ride and how it came to be. But I was definitely curious about like the ownership of the park early out, owned by this Taft Broadcasting Company, which I don't think anyone's heard of. But yeah, at the time, the Taft Broadcasting Company actually owned Hanna-Barbera properly and Ruby Spears, which were the creators of Scooby Doo. So this was all in house for them.
That's pretty impressive that they branched out into actually building their own roller coasters. Because not even like Disney.
Yeah, Disney, it's always like Zamperla, or I don't know. I'm not a coaster person, so I don't know all the names of the brands, but whether or not it was Taft or Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters, which I know is a company, I've heard that name so many times. It's a company with a long history, built a whole bunch of stuff. Whoever it was, I don't know. I think they did a pretty good job with this one.
Yeah, for like a kiddie coaster, it's like really it's just a tiny wooden roller coaster, but like it's a good one. I remember even like I remember I went on it like when I was a little older, like in my teen years, And I remember going up to it and the vehicles being like, they're actually like so small. Like as a kid, you remember it just being like, oh, it's like I remember it being like a normal size wooden roller coaster vehicle, but they're like tiny. Like it fits like one adult in there. Like two, you'll be squished.
It's almost like the whole ride was just like they took like Wild Beast or whatever and just shrunk the whole thing down. That's what the layout of this is. It's just like a miniaturized version of your classic wooden coaster.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say yeah. It's definitely a good like entry because I feel like as a kid, once you go on this one, you sort of gain the confidence to go on something bigger.
Totally. I can remember that as a kid. We were talking about first coasters earlier. And I think once you hit that first hurdle, like you want to go on like the bigger and badder rides right away.
My opinion on roller coasters is if you can handle like a smaller, medium sized one, you can really handle any roller coaster because it's just the same thing at the end of the day, just for longer.
Essentially, I know we kind of argued about this in the past about talking about Wonderland, Behemoth, and Leviathan, the big giga coasters there. I'll go on them fine. I have a good time, but I'm just like such a like heights like scaredy cat. Like I get so spooked out, like just on that slow incline, like the lift hill. That
Oh yeah, the incline's the worst for anybody, but like Leviathan is bigger than Behemoth. If you're saying like I'm saying if you can handle Behemoth, you can handle Leviathan, even though one's bigger. And the same goes for Yukon Striker. Like it's just a different like I think Leviathan is something like 86 or 87-degree drop, and then Yukon Striker's a 90-degree drop. Like you're not gonna feel 3 degrees of difference.
I almost feel safer in Yukon Striker just because it's so like the restraints are so restrictive that I'm like I'm not gonna go anywhere. I feel safe now.
No, Leviathan. The worst part of roller coasters for me is also like going up, but like for me, I'm a lot better now that I've been on like a lot of roller coasters. But anytime I go on a new ride, even if it's smaller than something I've been on, there's always that little bit of like fear.
It's the anxiety. You don't know what's coming up next. And especially for like these, I'm still going to call them regional parks, but rides that you wouldn't have seen a ride through of a million times before on YouTube, where it's like completely fresh and new for me. That's like a whole new like class of excitement and like anticipation when you're about to board.
Like when I went to Knott's Berry Farm, they had I knew about a lot about the dark rides and stuff there, but I didn't really research like the roller coasters before going there. So I pretty much went into all of them based on like what I had heard from my coworkers and based on just like getting to the park and seeing them. And they had one that was a 90-degree drop called it was like I forget what it's called. It was called it was surfing themed or something. But I remember like it's smaller than Yukon Striker, but you still get that like little bit of fear. But I will say I loved Not so much. I want to go back.
I need to go.
My gripe with that is they are so inefficient. Like with their loads, like me and Tiana both are coming from like this Disney brain where it's like efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. But there it's just like it was like a busy day in the summer. So like there were no groupers anywhere. They don't tell you which part of the ride to go to. So there are so many empty seats that you just kind of like once you get to the front of the line, you put yourself in a row. But then that causes there to be so many empty seats because if there's groups of like two groups of three, then like someone's not gonna sit next to somebody on the ride. And if there's single riders, there's not going to be someone next to them. Sometimes we would see rides with like full rows missing. And also, like, if you're a group of like four and you want to sit with people, you don't know what the parties in front of you are because it could be, you don't know if it's a group of three standing in front of you or like a two and a one and then a two. So, like, you could end up like not being in the same car. Like, it just makes it so inefficient. Like, these lines that were like an hour could easily be like 30 to 45 minutes, like, probably even less.
Totally. And I can't imagine with like people waiting for the front row or anything like that, how crazy that would get.
And even like people don't fill in all the rows. Like remember we had one person who like they were two people and the cars were four across and they sat right in the middle instead of going two and then we sit next to them.
I totally run into that at Wonderland as well, where there'll be a single rider and they'll just like sit on the near side of the row, like where you enter from.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
essentially claiming the whole row for themselves, even though they're a single rider, and that would never happen at a Disney or a Universal or anything like that.
Well, Disney people see you standing there. Like when there's a single rider line, I've had times on Everest where someone will sit like in the front row and I'll just be standing there like, oh, I need to get on the ride also.
Oh, totally. I think that it might be kind of a guest mentality thing where you just kind of you don't remember other people.
But Wonderland, to Wonderland's credit, they will put a grouper there for like the bigger rides, like Leviathan and Behemoth. Like there will be a grouper there.
I was really impressed with Yukon Striker's whole like system.
Yukon Striker, beautiful bag system, most beautiful bag system I've ever seen. So mainly everything at Wonderland is mainly there's a cubby for each car on the track. You put your bag in, other people come and they claim their bag. So it's
It's
kind of
so
like,
chintzy. Like when you get in, you walk fully across the train, drop your bags in the cubby, and then you have to walk back into the train.
and that was also like a big no-no at like Disney. I guess it was different at the ride I worked on because the cars were constantly moving. But I know that was a big no-no, like not to like guess like cross before like they get off the ride. At Yukon Striker, they mainly have this system where it's like a conveyor belt that goes. You put your bag in when you get to the load platform, and then the conveyor belt is the same length of the ride. So by the time you get to the exit, your bag is on the exit platform, and it's beautiful. It's so cool, and it also kind of adds this whole mining aesthetic they're going for because it looks like,
It's like an aerial conveyor belt, like they're hanging from the ceiling.
yeah.
Anyway, to circle back to Ghoster Coaster and some of the things that you spoke about. So this is a wooden roller coaster we mentioned a couple times before. Did you read anything about the American Coaster Enthusiasts, ACE?
I've heard that name before. I don't remember where, but I know it exists.
Anyway, it's notable because they have this like coaster classic, like a list of roller coasters that meet this standard for coaster classics. And Ghoster Coaster was one of them. And I was really curious about what this is because in my research, I found that Ghoster Coaster was actually stripped of its title. And essentially, what makes a coaster classic is that it's a wooden coaster that just basically doesn't keep up with safety standards.
Wait, so they let it rot? Like they let it become unsafe?
Not rotting per se, it's just like little tiny things that in my mind like seem like things that we shouldn't have on roller coasters. I know I'm going to get like so much shit for this from like coaster heads. There's basically four standards for like items that a roller coaster has to meet to be a coaster classic. One of them is that it has to have traditional lap bars. It can't have any kind of like seat belts or other restraints. And it has to be a lap bar that you just kind of hold in place. It can't like ratchet in place.
Wait, it can't lock?
I guess it can lock, but it doesn't have like the like tick 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 tick. Yeah, where it's like for different like sizes of legs.
It's like fuck your body type. You're either in or you're in.
Yeah, exactly. They want bench style seats that allow riders to slide side to side. So like no like separated seats for like left, right.
Yeah. I think most of the wooden roller coasters at Wonderland have that.
Yeah, and you see it at like Big Thunder Mountain, I remember has that too, because I totally knocked into people while riding that.
When you're a single rider on Big Thunder, you're flying all over the place.
Yeah, and I guess that makes it a. If it was a wooden coaster, it would be a coaster classic for having that. No headrest. They want you to be able to see the entire ride from any point.
I remember when I was little, I went on Wild Beast with my friend at Wonderland, and there was like no line. So we went on it like 10 times in a row. And there's one bank, and our heads smashed together every single time. Like to the point where when we got to that part, we would just like move our heads to the side because they would literally just like bang together.
That's exactly the problem with those like bench seats that let you slide to side to side. You almost have to, on a curve, you have to like lean to the opposite sides of each other to make sure that you don't smack into each other.
Gamification of roller coasters.
The last thing that makes a coaster classic is that it can't have assigned seating. There can't be a grouper. To be a coaster classic, you have to be able to just sit wherever you want, which I don't know what that does, like what the advantage of that is, other than I guess that's how it was in the old days and that's more classic, but I'm confused on that one.
What if you have a grouper on certain days, but no grouper on other days? Did your coaster classic, is it like a sliding scale?
Do you like lose and regain your coaster classic status every few days? Like, I don't know, do they send people to the parks to keep up on this? I don't know how they.
This has to just be like like a fan group, right? There's no like actual legitimacy.
I think so. I think so. There is a list like online that I read through of like current coaster classics, and it's all like far between. I know the wooden roller coaster at Playland, which is now my local park, is considered a coaster classic. And I don't know, nothing about this appeals to me. I'm sorry.
No, I think wooden roller coasters should be like.
Demolished.
No, I love wooden roller coasters.
Really?
I love wooden roller coasters. I don't think a wooden roller coaster is inherently rough. It just depends on how old it is and how well it's maintained.
I feel like they need so much maintenance, though.
Another wooden roller coaster I went on at Knott's was Ghost Rider, and that was one of the smoothest wooden roller coasters I have ever been on. Like it just felt like I might be remembering this wrong because I remember Tiana said she thought it was still rough, but she like hates wooden roller coasters.
Like me.
But yeah, but I remember it being like smooth, and that was a fun ride. Like that was probably the best wooden roller coaster I've ever been on.
Was it like a wooden steel hybrid? Because I've seen those before too, where it's.
I don't think it was. I think I know because I know people say like I think Steel Vengeance is a hybrid. Would it be categorized as because it's wooden and steel? It's like wooden supports and then like a steel style track.
Yeah. I don't, again, I'm not a coaster person. I don't know about all of this, but I'm just not a fan of wooden coasters. I'm sorry.
Do you just not like them because they're rough?
They're rough, and there's also just so much you can do with them. Like, they're very limited. Like, obviously, I think there was like one, like the Beast, that had like a loop, but you can't really do loops or inversions or anything crazy with a wooden coaster. You can't, like, they mostly just follow like a circle eight kind of path where it's just like you go around tight curves and then go on a few like bunny hops and then come around in another like.
But that's essentially what Leviathan and Behemoth does.
They're a little more freestyle. Like they got a little. Behemoth's a little more like that. Behemoth is like very like an oval track, but
I kind of love how classic though, like wooden roller coasters are though. There's something about them where it's just like
aesthetically, I agree.
we talk about this a lot when we go to Wonderland, how roller coasters are beautiful. Like they are beautiful structures. Like especially in like when you see a lot of them in a skyline, like especially at a park like Wonderland or Knott's. This might just be the nerd in us speaking, but I know a lot of people say like they would never want to live near Wonderland. I probably wouldn't want to either, but like it's a very pretty sight.
I think it's totally that anticipation thing, seeing the coasters on the skyline and just like in the distance. Like it's just so surreal. Like that's not a thing that you see every day.
Yeah, especially like when you're in Canada and you don't have like a lot of theme parks. Like you're not like America where like every state has like multiple regional parks. Like this is the only I think this is like the only like actually big park in Canada.
Arguably La Ronde as well, Six Flags La Ronde, but even that's very small for a Six Flags park.
Yeah, like I've never been there, but I even looking on their website, I remember not seeing there's not like a ton of rides there. It's not like a ton of coasters.
It's much smaller for sure.
But if you are gonna have a park, I think Wonderland is a great park to have. It's a very impressive park. I know you're probably you have very different opinions, but just if you're going based on the stats, it had the second most coasters of any park in the world behind Magic Mountain, tied with Cedar Point.
That always surprises me. Like, I don't know why it does. I guess I just don't expect it for a park that I grew up with, but
They also consider rides like Taxi Jam because they're a roller coaster. Those get added on the list.
totally,
But
totally.
like, but there are a lot of roller coasters there, and like at the end of the day, flat rides are good and they're fun. But when you're going to these parks, you're going there for coasters, and flat rides are kind of like a distraction.
Yeah, I completely agree.
But even also going based off like numbers, this might be because it's like the only park in Canada, but it has the second most attendance of any Cedar Fair park behind Knott's Berry Farm, which is open all year round.
So speaking of Cedar Fair, do you want to get into the other Ghoster coasters? So Ghoster Coaster was not unique, and as far as I can tell, I watched a couple ride-throughs. Most of these followed the exact same track layout, exact same aesthetic, but it also existed at King's Dominion and at Carowinds. Both of those have since been rethemed to Woodstock Express as a part of like the Peanuts transition. But the one that I wanted to talk about was Kings Island. This one is completely closed, like it doesn't exist anymore. But their Ghoster coaster was nothing like ours. It's a steel suspended coaster where instead of like a chain lift, it just like lifts you up like on a piece of track, like an elevator. I don't know if you've seen a ride like this before, but I'll send you a picture.
Oh yeah, that's I just looked it up. That's wild. That's like it kind of reminds me of Tower of Terror where you go like up and you go onto a different track.
The other thing that it reminds me of, because it's like a suspended coaster and there's only one car per train, it reminds me so much of the Pteranodon flyers at Islands of Adventure, which I wanted to go on for so long.
I will say that they have a lot nicer like facade.
Yeah, I wanted to show you. This was, I think, at King's Dominion.
Oh my god. This is like if you were ever a kid and you got like those like the clip art CDs where you like get more clip art for your computer. It looks like you just looked up like Ghost in that. You would get just this crappy like clip art Ghost.
The type kind of like the font kind of reminds me of this. I don't remember what it was called, but there was this program where you like drag photos into like comic panels and you'd make your own comics like that. I don't remember what it was called, but like it was all like these word artifacts and it looks like shit. Like this, I'm glad that we didn't have that at least. Even though we lost our Scooby Doo theming, I'm glad that we didn't go this far.
I don't know how I feel about like Peanuts replacing everything. Like Peanuts are cool, you know what I mean? But I feel like it's that same thing where it's kind of like, what's the cheapest IP we can buy that's still recognizable? I don't know if kids are like talking about the Peanuts still, because like I guess there was the Peanuts movie a few years ago, but like
I know Apple TV just put out a new show that's like the Snoopy show, and I don't think anyone's going to watch it. Like, I like the old Peanuts cartoons, but I don't think I'd watch anything new. And the only reason I like the Christmas special and all that is because like they're just so like old and quaint, and we've all been watching them for years. Like, I don't think I'd go out of my way to watch new Peanuts content, and that's kind of what this feels like.
yeah, no, they're not. They're kind of lame. I don't think any kids really excited to see Snoopy. Maybe they're excited to see Snoopy, but I don't think any of them are excited to see like Pigpen or like Lionel.
You always call him Lionel too. Linus.
Oh, it's Linus. I knew it came out wrong when I said it.
To keep the Ghoster Coaster name with the Peanuts feels weird. I know they had a Halloween special, but like it's not something I associate the characters with. To have like this graveyard, which we should talk about the graveyard.
Before we get into the graveyard, I'll say one good retheme would be to name it like the Great Pumpkin Coaster, and then just put a giant pumpkin in the middle of the track, and you're just going around the pumpkin.
Even just like one of the inflatable like Halloween decoration pumpkins, like that would make me so much happier.
Yeah, but the graveyard is certainly something to behold.
Yeah, and there always was a graveyard out front, if I'm not mistaken.
We don't know if I don't remember if it was this crappy, but
yeah, it's certainly taken a toll. I know earlier we were talking about the theming. I was like totally amped up about that haunted house, but
it is still just like wooden panels up. Like it looks cool from the outside, but once you get inside, it's just purple wood.
Yeah, and these graveyards are totally true to that. They're just like painted flats. A lot of them with like the funny epitaphs. Like you see them in front of like the Haunted Mansion at Disney as well. I think I took some examples. There's like I leaned over, Polly, Esther, I'll be right back. Like all these like puns that are kind of like spooky, kind of like I am dead, that kind of thing. But the one that stood out to us, I think, on our most recent visit was Chelsea Buns.
What is it? It just. I just still. I think like, is it some kind of dessert?
Well, that's the funny thing. I think the whole time that we were going there, we had no idea what Chelsea Buns is. I assumed it was like a really clumsy pun on like Hell C or something like that. But you're right. Chelsea Buns are just like cinnamon rolls with raisins or currants.
Is this something you serve on like Halloween?
No, there's no like spooky connection. It just seems like a super like British thing. Like that's all I could find. No one outside of England, I don't think, knows what a Chelsea bun is. Every single like link I could find was just like a super British looking recipe site.
Yeah, there's no British connection to. I guess maybe Scooby Doo went over across the pond one time.
Yeah, and I don't know if these gravestones were like carried over from Scooby Doo, so maybe like Chelsea Buns was always there and we only just noticed it.
Yeah, as a kid, I don't think I was reading the reading the gravestones.
No.
They should open up like a Chelsea bun stand, and they have like an ice cream stand there. Get rid of that. Kids don't want ice cream. They want Chelsea buns.
I know they have the Tiny Tom donuts.
Do they have a Tiny Tom stand there? They do, I think.
They do, yeah.
I always get the Tiny Toms by Vortex.
Exactly. There's another Tiny Tom stand in the park. Let's just bulldoze the one near the Ghoster Coaster. We're selling Chelsea buns now.
No, here's what you're doing. I changed my mind. You're closing every single food stand in Wonderland and replacing it with a Tiny Tom stand.
Fair enough, but we gotta have one Chelsea bun stand in there somewhere.
Somebody scared me during quarantine, and they told me that Tiny Tom went out of business. And I looked it up, and it's false. They're still going, but that scared the shit out of me. I was like, there's no reason to go to the C&E anymore. There's no reason to go to Wonderland anymore. I need my Tiny Tom donuts.
I guess we should explain for anyone who doesn't know, Tiny Toms are just like little mini donuts that are like...
Yeah, it's kind of in the name. It's just you got to get them with either powdered sugar. Actually, no, it's all good. Powdered sugar, cinnamon sugar, apple cinnamon, all good.
I don't think I've had apple cinnamon, but...
I've never had it either, but it sounds good. That's like, I will say, like, Wonderland food is kind of shit, but like, those Tiny Toms are top tier. Better than the funnel cakes. Better than the funnel cakes.
Totally. Even if they're not like a Wonderland exclusive, I'm a slut for a Tiny Tom.
I remember I went to like a bar mitzvah fair when I was like planning my bar mitzvah, and one of the things you could have come to your bar mitzvah was like a Tiny Tom stand where they come with like the machine and they make fresh Tiny Toms.
Did you get that?
No, because I was doing my bar mitzvah like in the synagogue, so we had to like, my party was there inside the synagogue, so we had to use their caterer because they didn't allow like outside food. So I'm like, Grr, I want Tiny Toms at my bar mitzvah.
That's so lame.
I know, like, yeah, but like, oh, they're so good. Every time I go to Wonderland, I have to get them because me and Eric, whenever we went, we would always go to the Wendy's across the street because Wonderland food is overpriced to heck, and it's not like, it's kind of shit. At least when you go to like Knott's, their food is good. Like I remember I got like I got ice cream from there. I got the boysenberry ice cream, and it was so good.
Well, they do all the food festivals and stuff, so I would hope it would be good.
But like, it's run by the same company. I don't understand why they can't do that here. Like, if you're at least you could sell me overpriced food, but at least make it good. Like when I go to Disney,
it's overpriced, but it's good.
But it's good. Like at least it doesn't taste like crap.
We'll have to do an episode on park foods at some point.
Oh, that's multiple episodes. Yeah, no, that's for sure.
Anyway, for now, I'm just craving some Tiny Tom donuts.
They have a place. You got to come back here. You got to move back to Toronto. They have I learned there's like a Tiny Tom place in like Mississauga you can go to, and they have like an actual store.
Oh, like year round?
Yeah, and I got a mission out there. I got to get out there and get myself some Tiny Toms.
Do you have any more thoughts on Ghoster Coaster before we wrap things up?
No, I love the Ghoster Coaster. I think it's one I could go on again without feeling too much shame for going on a kid's ride.
That's true. I think, like you talked about Silver Streak and all that, definitely Taxi Jam we could not ride.
No.
Silver Streak we did ride, and I felt a little weird. I think Ghoster Coaster is like that perfect balance.
I don't think Silver Streak is kind of like in a weird area of the park, because I think it is like a 4 on the intensity scale.
Their intensity scale is kind of whack, but...
Yeah, but like, I feel like it's not even like a kiddie ride. It's just like a mini, it's just small. But I wouldn't quantify it as a kiddie ride.
But yeah, long live Ghoster Coaster. Let's get Scooby-Doo back in there. Let's get Chelsea Buns shop across the street. Let's make it happen. At least get the giant pumpkin. What are we doing?
Put a giant pumpkin in there, and then all the problems will be solved.
Totally.
Or maybe like build a little shack, like you know how Wooden Roller could have a little shack, and just tape some pumpkins in there, tape some ghosts, bing, bing, boom, you're done.
There already is the shack. There's the haunted house. Do something with it.
Yeah, just put some ghosts in there.
Bring back, like, we were talking about the little cutout Scooby and Shaggy that were in there. Put a cutout, like...
of Snoopy.
Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
Snoopy, yeah, something.
Or Linus.
Lionel.
Wait, no, I said Lionel before.
No, you had it right, but I just had to get you back with Lionel.
Okay. You're confusing me. I don't know. See, it's not a very strong IP.
We've been away for too long. I think that's what this means.
We got a picture with Linus.
We did, yeah. And I think you called him Lionel to his face.
He looked so dirty. I remember, like, he had like, because it was raining, he had some dirty feet.
Oh yeah, no, all the costume characters at Wonderland are so dirty.
It was so awkward. I remember because there it's just like some teen who doesn't give a crap, probably.
Yeah, I don't think they have like quite the same training that the other parks might get.
No. But hopefully one day soon we'll be able to be riding on the Ghoster Coaster again.
So in the meantime, thanks for coming along for the ride with us on Achy Breaky Park. Stay tuned for new episodes on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
And be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Achy Breaky Park.
If you like the show, feel free to leave a 5-star review.
Until next time, don't forget, it was all started by two guys desperate to go back to a theme park.